Today, I want to talk about how we can help our children be their authentic selves, and this will be part one. Raising great kids is a privilege and a responsibility. Sometimes our children can't see their own greatness. Sometimes we can't. Other times we can see their greatness but struggle to step up because of our own challenges. We will be discussing the brain science, tools and techniques that help us raise great kids. Hi, I'm Cynthia Armstrong with Raising Great Kids. I am a mother, a teacher in general and special education, and I've also homeschooled my own children for 5 years. So this is a lot about the things that I've learned in my journey and the things I'll continue to learn as I make this journey with you. Today, I want to talk about how children can be their authentic selves. And this one here can be a struggle for some parents. There's some parents, we'll say there's a lot of parents out there who really struggle with being their authentic self. Like, who am I and what am I bringing and what are the things I really like or don't like? It can be really hard sometimes for the parents. I'm going to talk in terms of our children, but please remember that anything that applies to our children applies to us. Or if I'm talking to the parents, anything I'm talking about us also applies to our children. We're all people, and sometimes we can forget that children are people too. But if you just remember that children are people, parents are people, that we're all people, then it's easier to go see how it applies to both of us. So being our authentic self can be a struggle because of some of the beliefs that we have that don't benefit us. And these are beliefs that have been taught for generations. So remember, it's not our fault that we might think this way, but it is our responsibility to check in and say, is this leading to what I want? Is this treating children? Is this treating myself how I want? And so even though it's not our fault, we do have that responsibility to check in. And I'm putting that in the beginning because I know this one here was really, really hard for me. And it might be hard for some of you out there. Though I'm sure there's plenty that would be easy for. So this is one, I'm going to go back to my special education years that I noticed because I worked in a classroom. It was a special ed preschool classroom. So there's no differentiation in preschool. As you get into older grades, they'll often separate children. Which, you know, you can have your own opinion on that, but that's how the school district did it. So in my classroom, I could have any severity of student, plus I had typical students, typically developing students, and some of them were quite advanced. So I had children who were like at a 6-month level, all the way to children who were reading first grade level in preschool. So I had this range in my classroom. And when one student would go over to a student with who might be lower developmentally, they might be at that, 2-year-old level, or, they're at a younger developmental level, and the students would go over and they would grab toys for them, or they would tease them, or they do things like that. I would instantly be triggered, like, you don't do that, that's not kind, like instantly rush in to protect the child and let that child know not okay. So that was one of the programs that I had that was very strong in me. And so that protective thing that put this child on a I don't want to say necessarily the bad child list, but really, I guess it was back then the bad child list. That is wrong, that is bad, that's, you know, just don't do it. It was one of my big triggers. And so that's when I really began looking like, why am I getting such a strong response here? And then why do I feel really bad afterwards? Because I wasn't being authentic. That was one of my trained programs, and I wasn't allowing this child to be themselves. And I was putting this child in a I must defend, which as young children, as parents, we do. That is one of our innate jobs, is to protect young children. But then there's protecting to the point where I don't allow them to develop. So this, I've been going on a long time, but today I want to talk about how being authentic means children can have all of the emotions and all of the feelings. There are not feelings that are bad or feelings that we shouldn't have. And there is definitely a differentiation between having a feeling and acting on a feeling. So when we're talking about these young children, we've got, and older children too, because we might have been training them the way we were trained to think that these emotions are not okay, or they're bad, or they mean, there's something wrong with you. And to try and squash them or not have them. And when we try and squash any feeling, or like it's wrong, it's bad, I shouldn't have it, we automatically lose our authentic self, because this body, this being, who I am, experiences all of the emotions. And just remember that emotions are an experience. We are not our emotions. We can get into, well, I am depressed, instead of I am experiencing depression, or I am angry, instead of I am experiencing anger. And so just checking those words is kind of like the beginning of teaching our brain to shift. Because if we're experiencing it, then we know, guess what? Experiences will stop. They will end. And it's not who I am, which means how I'm responding is not related to who the child is, which is kind of what I was doing. I was putting a label on them. And even if we don't use the words, oh, you're bad, or there's something wrong with you, or anything like that, children get that energy from us, and they will interpret and put the labels on themselves, even if we don't verbally put labels on them. And so allowing that spectrum of emotion is so vital to allowing children to remember their authentic self, because they come into the world as their authentic self. But then our programming and those, in the world and the environment begin to teach them not to be authentic. And so that is a huge thing. And I know there's a lot of you going right now, but what do we do when things like that happen? Because it's not okay. And uh, and that's true. I'm stumbling over my words a little bit, trying to figure out, how do I say this in a way that makes sense? Because this took me a long time to move from the mental understanding to the heart understanding. And so remember that children are people too, and all people, they're on their own journey. And so allowing for the emotions, because there's no emotion that is bad or that we shouldn't have, but it's the responding to the emotions that really truly make the difference, like how a child acts. So just because a child, we get to teach them appropriate ways to experience the emotion. Because remember, experiencing or feeling the emotion does not mean we have to act a certain way. So it's teaching children, oh, wow, you really felt powerful when you took that toy away from that child, and so it's teaching them to take the time not to just respond or react to the child who did that thing that put up our parent defenses and our desire to protect and defend, but is to take time to teach that child. Often we want to like I said, instantly stop it and put that child away. Um, and we need to, well, it's more beneficial to keep that communication open, not to come in with that judgment, but to stop and talk to that child. You really felt powerful when you did that, but was that a kind way to respond? Or or uh I'm sorry that how trying to get them to identify how they're feeling if they're older. But often we haven't labeled these negative feelings because we're not experiencing or feeling we're allowed to experience ourselves. So labeling those negative feelings, I'm putting the negative in quotes, just because I don't think there's any negative feelings, but the ones that we were taught were negative. um, we don't label them as much, or label them correctly. Oh, you're just being selfish. You're just being mean. You're just being, and we'll say these things. Oh, that was mean to do. Well, mean isn't an emotion, right? But they might have been feeling weak, and by doing that, it helped them to feel powerful. I felt out of control. Like my mom said no to this thing. And so I'm going to go in there and I'm going to take control from someone I know I can take control from. And so it's, again, kind of going through the needs of a child, or what could they be feeling a deficit in, that they would try and fill that deficit by acting in this way. And again, it could be habits if they've learned from other people, oh, this is a way to respond. But most often I found it's because they're experiencing a deficit. I don't feel connected. And if I go over there and hit that child, I feel connected. And so really take a look at what emotions do you allow yourself to experience, and what emotions do you squash down. If you put buts in there, that's often one of the things. I shouldn't be upset about this, but oh, I shouldn't judge this person, but uh, and when we say things like that, we're trying to cover those negative emotions, pretend they don't exist. And in another video, we'll go a little more into the benefits of what I've been taught, and I think many of us have been taught, are those negative emotions. So uh, remember that we didn't choose these programs, but we do have that responsibility to take a look and see if they're benefiting us, because children are great by their very nature, and we have that privilege and that responsibility to raise them. And looking into ourselves is one way we can do that. Hi friends, Cynthia Armstrong here. Thanks for joining us today. Please make sure that you subscribe to our channel so you can see when new videos come out and like this one. It is such a responsibility and a challenge to raise great kids, and we are here to help you along that journey to make it as enjoyable and fun and fulfilling as possible. Please check out our website, www.raisinggreatkids.net, and I will leave that in the description below.